All right, hi class. We're about to, can everyone please take a seat? So Vinay and I, we're just about to take our masks off, just letting everybody know we're about 6 feet apart, but ready to get things started. Oh, I'm Rishi. I'm actually one of your TAs for the semester, and so super excited to be up here, and we're looking for a great conversation. And in terms of housekeeping announcements, so in about a few weeks, actually I believe March 8th, right? Oh, March, yes. And we'll have Daniel Moen McCullough, and we're actually looking for a student who can introduce him. He was actually a Cal iHouse Alumni of the Year, and he's flying in from London. So really amazing speaker, and really excited to have him. But to get things started, Vinay, how's it going? How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Can everyone hear me properly? Yeah, okay, cool, great, yeah.
Thanks, Vinay, so much for joining us. So
Yeah,
as for a bit of an introduction,
Yeah.
Vinay, he's actually a Cal grad, graduated in 2016, and is the COO and co-founder of Wildfire. He originally kind of started his journey started at Kodaikanal International School, actually based in India.
Yeah.
Came over here to the United States and was attended Cal and studied political science, but very involved. Part of Dilsey,
Yeah.
Capella, you're part of ASUC, Cal Rowing. Hopefully I didn't miss anything there.
Just a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so many.
Anything but academics.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
And then following that, so during his time at Cal, he co-founded a startup with two of his friends called Wildfire, which honestly blew up. So Wildfire, I'm sure you can get much more deeper into it. It's kind of like next door for the Instagram generation.
Yeah.
Essentially a social news application that essentially blew up from university to university. I think over 200 plus universities, nearly 1 million users. And soon enough, was actually eventually acquired by Opendoor in 2021. So congratulations on the acquisition.
Thank you.
Currently, you're a senior product operations manager at Opendoor, correct?
I am.
And I guess beyond your current work, you're also an LP and advisor to many startups. I believe also Net Theory Futures Fund.
Right.
And can you maybe share a bit more about what that is?
Yeah, so one thing I realized throughout my entrepreneurship journey is that there's a lot of hard work that went into it, but also a ton of luck. And there are a lot of individuals who aren't like me that don't have the same opportunities to get there. So the fund that I invest in and I advise is predominantly for like women of color and women entrepreneurs who are interested in getting and breaking into the startup field. Like a requirement is pretty much you have to have one woman on your board or one woman like as a part of your major team to actually be eligible for funding from us. And this is just a way for us to make sure that like we are investing in like very diverse teams and teams that are actually like trying to make great impacts out there too.
No, I think that's amazing, really helping you see yourself giving back and really trying making a difference, right? Especially in sort of Silicon Valley VC ecosystem. So found that amazing. But
Thanks, man.
taking a step back to where things began, first, what was your first year at Cal dorm?
Unit
Any
one.
guesses, anyone?
Oh,
I guess raise your hands, Unit 3? Oh. All right, Unit 2? All right, and let's do Unit 1. All right. I think majority's Unit 1. What is it?
Unit 1 Slotman. Yeah, I was one of those lucky kids that was in a mini suite. It was a wonderful, never had to share a shower with anyone. It was a phenomenal life.
How many of you was it? Like 4 or 5 guys? Or?
Yeah, it was like 2 people in my room, including me, and then my suite mate was actually the RA, which made things interesting from time to time because my roommate at that time loved to smoke a lot of pot and loved to deal pot, so it made for an interesting experience overall. I'm allowed to say that, right? I'm allowed to say that. It's fine. It's fine now. Yeah, we're not really recording, but we are. But yeah.
No, it sounds like a great time freshman year. I actually lived in Deutsch Hall, so also Unit 1.
Unit 1, let's go.
Exactly. But even before your time at Cal, so you actually spent some time in the Bay, and then you also grew up a bit in India and spent some time at boarding school. So how was boarding school? How did it shape you, the person you are today?
Man, boarding school was incredible. So I was born in California in Mountain View, but I moved to India like 7th grade. And I ended up going to boarding school from 7th through 12th, and then I came back here for college, and ever since then. And this is the school that I went to. It's really picturesque and really beautiful. It's just a nice place. It was in the middle of nowhere in South India, but like we weren't allowed laptops or cell phones, but we had like nature, which I know isn't like the best replacement, but it is what it is, I guess. But it was interesting because most of my peers were like sons and daughters of like diplomats or like major like actors and actresses in India and stuff like that. And then outside the walls of these boarding schools was a lot of individuals who were in need, who are very, very different, like poverty-stricken individuals. So that was my first exposure to like really the gap between like individuals with a lot and individuals with nothing, like barely any drinking water in a lot of these surrounding areas. So that was like my first experience to the idea that like, crap, like I've led a very privileged life, but there are a lot of people that are around us that like barely have things that we take for granted all the time, you know? So that was my first experience and exposure to that. That was like in 9th grade, I guess, or like 8th grade or something like that.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So every semester we like to have a theme for this course. I believe like last semester was the enterprise, this semester is beyond yourself. And you bring up a really great point, because that even in India and even in the United States or countries across the world, there's a huge wealth divide, right? Between the haves and the have-nots. So how did this kind of impact you? Do you have any stories, anything you could share there?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I came from California, where like volunteering in San Jose, California, where I was brought up, was like volunteering at a Kumon, or I mean nowadays there's like so many more opportunities, but I guess like a little bit a while ago, like working at Good Sam Hospital, like volunteering like that was like the thing. But like I guess in India, like it really opened my eyes up to the fact that like there are alternative ways that we could help, and more ways that we had to help. And I think one of the ways that I got involved was like I started a nonprofit there where like we worked towards like rebuilding villages that were hit by cyclones, or like places that didn't have a lot of water. We would build like rainwater harvesting systems. So that was kind of like my first exposure to the idea that like we kind of have a responsibility to do a little bit more. And it was really like anchored by my parents, who are like, it doesn't matter like what you do in your life. Like it doesn't matter if you're a doctor or engineer, just like try to be a good person and try to give back. And like you've had a lot of like luck in your life, being born into a certain family, being born into this community, and like what are you going to do for others? So I really attribute that kind of like line of thinking to my parents, who really like instilled in me that like, you know, like don't take everything that you have for granted, like try to give back in some capacity. So really appreciated that.
And so like with this sort of theme, it obviously helps lead you into university, enrolling at Cal and now studying poli-sci. So what kind of may help you make that transition, right? Like why Berkeley, why poli-sci? And then I guess looking into your days in college, what were some of your favorite experiences? What were you involved in there? Yeah,
so I applied to 13 colleges, and I was rejected from 12 out of 13 colleges. Cal was the only school that I got into. I applied to all the UCs, got rejected from all the UCs. Like I got rejected from my safety school, like the concept of a safety school, whatever. But like Cal was the only school I got into, and Cal was also the best school that I applied to. So, and Cal was also my first choice. So it was just like a very serendipitous thing. It just worked out in a weird way. But Cal's also like one of the last universities to come out, right? Like in terms of like the application cycle, like decisions. So when I got rejected from all my colleges, I was so sad. I was like, oh my God, I have let my parents down. And anyone that's ever grown up in an immigrant family will know that like, I just brought dishonor to my family. Like, it's just like, it's over. But like, thankfully, Cal let me in, and I was able to get involved in like a bunch of really, really cool things. On that side over there, I was on an a cappella team. I sang for 4 years, and before that, I sang for like 15 years. But yeah, I was on an a cappella team called Dilse. We mixed like South Asian music with English music, and we would come up with some really cool tunes. So I was on the team for all 4 years. That over there is me sleeping because I never went to class as much as I should have.
It's a common theme, honestly.
It's a common theme. I'm not giving that same advice to everyone here, but I'm saying that that's what I did. Over there, like I used to work for the mayor for about 2.5 years. I was a city commissioner. I actually took a semester off from Cal to work for him full time. So that was just a really interesting experience for me, because he asked me to like stay on after a summer and just like work for him a little bit longer. And I was like, this is an opportunity that I probably won't get anywhere else. So I tried doing that. And then over here is I was a senator many years ago with ASUC. So that was just like an interesting experience where I'm sure the concept of sprawling is still the same. And I was relentless. I was just everywhere all the time. You would have hated me if we were students together. I was just like everywhere all the time. And Yeah, so funny story. It's actually not that funny to my parents, but it's funny to me. I came into Cal double majoring in legal studies and theater acting. And then I switched to poli-sci.
How did that work out?
Okay, so it's terrible, right? So I wanted to be a lawyer. That was my goal. That was my dream. I wanted to be a civil rights lawyer. That's what I thought I was going to do. Clearly, I'm not that right now, much to my mom's deep sadness. But I wanted to be a lawyer. And then I thought that if I could, so I was a theater kid in high school as well. So I was like, okay, like if I can take the learnings from theater acting, and then if I could take that and use that in a courtroom, I could like convince everyone that like my client is not guilty or my client is guilty. And like, I mean, the concept sounds good, but like the execution is like not like that at all in any way. And freshman year, Vinay soon figured out that like that's not what you should do to get into law school. So I did political science, mostly just because I was interested in that. And I try my best to not look at my college experience with a lot of regrets, but I do wish that I had done a little bit more like economics-based classes, because Cal's poli-sci program doesn't always have like the strongest root in economics and economic theory. And I'm of the firm belief that anyone that wants to study policy should have a very strong grasp in economics. And I wish I had taken it upon myself to like learn a little bit more about macro and micro, mostly just because when it comes to being a COO, learning about basic economics is very important, which I had to learn on the job. But I mean, it was because of my major being a little bit like less tedious in a classroom, which is like why I was able to do like the myriad of activities that I was able to do and get my hands involved in like so many different things. And so even though I wish I'd studied more economics or whatever, like I really enjoyed the path that I took to get where I was, you know?
Yeah, and with all these amazing activities, the real question is that how do you manage your time, all the commitments, all the activities from classes?
Yeah, I didn't all the time, and like that's okay to say, right? Like I mean, it's like you try your best to commit to anything, but like I think like a big thing for me is that like if you, I don't know, like a big thing for me is that like if you promise someone you're going to do something, or if you make a commitment, you try to follow through with that as much as possible, like as much as you can. And I did spread myself a little too thin across all the activities that I was a part of, but I think that's where the fact that my major wasn't like my major didn't like, it didn't force me to be in a classroom all the time. And I was really lucky that I had friends who were like willing to give me notes, or like professors that I could talk to afterwards. And like, it just like really said, I'm really glad that none of my professors are in this room right now. They probably wouldn't remember me anyways. Yeah, so I was able to honor those commitments mostly just because I was able to show up because I wasn't in class all the time.
And then on top of that, I mean, by your senior year, founding a startup, you know, that in itself is like a 40-hour commitment. So
Yeah.
It's just amazing how you're able to balance everything. But in terms of building and leading toward Wildfire, where was inspiration? So I'm assuming that you didn't found that company. It wasn't your idea, but it was one of your friends, right?
Yeah, so we all have hi-bye friends in college, right? You're walking by Sproul, you see someone, you're like, what's up, dude? What's up? And you just sup your friends as you're walking by. And that was the guy in the middle. His name is Hriday. He was the CEO of Wildfire. He was walking by, this was senior year, he was walking like near VLSB when he was nearly robbed at knife point near VLSB. And at that moment, he called the cops, he called UCPD, and he was like, I was just nearly robbed in this area. Like, you should tell students to stay away. Like, send out a Nixle alert or whatever, like UCPD alert, whatever it was called. And then he posted on Free and for Sale. It was like, steer clear of this area, everyone. Like, I just nearly got robbed here. Like, I don't want anyone to be in this area. And what he realized through that was UCPD didn't send out an alert till the very next day. And unless you were physically scrolling through your Facebook to actually find the post and find what he had posted, like, you would have totally missed the fact that someone nearly got mugged in that area, and to avoid that area. So he realized that there had to be a better, more efficient way of kind of alerting people in real time when these kinds of major things happen around you. And like that's kind of where like the idea of Wildfire was born for him. And he approached Jay, who's on the right, and then well, right over here, and then me over there, to talk it through. And to me, like it was such an exciting idea. Like, I actually remember like I just finished my final round interview at like LinkedIn, and like I was sitting on Sproul steps when like Hriday approached me with this idea, and he was like, hey, like this is an idea that I have, this is what happened, like, I think we can do a better job, like, I think students deserve better, like, what do you think? And like, I was just like, it was amazing to see that, like, we have peers, like, bad things happen to, like, good people all the time, right? And to me, he was trying to be proactive about it. He realized that, like, he had something that he could do, and he tried to put together a plan. He was like, I don't want this to happen to other people. I have some skills. Let's see what we can do with this. And, like, I don't know, I admire that deeply about him. It was that admiration plus the idea that I was like, man, like, I'd love to work on this. And at that point, it was just like, it was just an idea. It was just a bunch of seniors in a room thinking they were going to start something sick. And it turned into something great, but in that moment, we didn't really realize anything more than that.
So talk me through the early days, right, where you have the idea, but actually building something. Like, how did you maybe delegate responsibilities or even think about communication with your co-founders? That's something I'm sure that many students here, I guess, budding entrepreneurs really struggle with.
Yeah, so there was no delegation because it was the three of us, so there's no one to really delegate to. So I'm non-technical, right? So both of these guys were CS majors, and they were both technical. Jay was the CTO, and Hriday was the CEO. So Hriday was focused on the product, he was focused on the vision, and he was focused on fundraising and all that stuff. Jay was focused on the tech stack, and I was focused on everything else. But what I kind of realized slowly is that the number one rule to like entrepreneurship, to me at least, is no ego. There is no job that's not like that's not important enough for you. There's no task that's beneath you. Like, you signed up for it all. Like, there are nights where, like, Jay and Hriday would be coding overnight, and I'd get them coffee and I'd get them donuts. And, like, that's my job in that moment, and that's what we have to do. There'd be days where, like, you have to do those kinds of things. And I think there should be no ego, because it's all about, like, the collective, the team, and making sure that, like, the team is succeeding at the end of the day. That's not to say they haven't got me, like, coffee and donuts and everything like that, but it's just like, in the very beginning, when you're starting something, engineers are going to be, like, when you're building a technical product, engineers are going to be, like, in the room a little bit more, like, spending more, like, physical hours on this thing. And, like, how do you support them? There are other ways to support them, but, like, in that way, like, you have to do whatever it takes. And that was one of the ways that, like, I was able to do that. So in addition to that, we just had, like, a really, like, I don't know, like, we were just, like, three dudes that just, like, kind of were, like, chill with each other. Like, we were all the same age, so it wasn't really, like, I don't know, I'm just thinking back to all the good times. Like, we lived together as well. Like, I lived with my co-founders for 2.5 years, which is, like, a dangerous thing to do. But I can tell you, in these 6 years that we've worked together, and we still work together at Open Door every day right now, we have never once gotten into a fight, ever, once. Like, don't get me wrong, we've disagreed on a lot of things, but our whole philosophy on disagreement was, you have your idea, I have mine, but I respect you so much that I'm going to let you convince me, like, why your idea is great, and, like, I want to be convinced. I want the best idea to win at the end of the day. Like, let's make it work. So, yeah, we never even thought about, like, trash and, like, who took out the trash and roommate-related stuff. Like, it was just like we just worked together really well. I think it's because we respected each other a lot. You know?
No, that's amazing to hear. It definitely seems like a bit of a rarity, these days.
Kind of is sometimes.
You guys kind of understood that the ultimate goal is that you guys are trying to build something great, right?
Yeah.
And so why sacrifice that for a disagreement or something along those lines?
Right, and, like, I think disagreeing is fine, right? I think disagreeing is a very healthy thing to do, and I think you should feel, like, respected enough to stand up for your own convictions. I think there's a tone and a way through which you can, like, say that, because don't get me wrong, like, everyone has ego, right? Like, everyone has their own thought process on, like, this is right, like, I'm right. It's just, like, pick and choose your battles, right? Like, you can't expect to win every battle, and, like, there are some individuals who believe that, like, every battle is, like, theirs to win, like. And very often I see this where, like, the CEO will be like, oh, like, I'm the CEO, like, I made the decision. In my 6 years working with Hriday, like, he has never once made a unilateral decision for the entire team. Like, we made a decision together, or we talked about it and we made decisions together. So I am very lucky in that the team that I found was, like, top tier. Like, I don't think I'd be able to find teams like that, like, for myself at least, like, as I went further in my entrepreneurship journey. Because I've met a lot of people in YC and, like, startup people, and, like, not everyone is kind of no ego or, like, no bullshit like these guys are. It's very titles and positions, and, like, it's walled off a lot of times.
And this is my role, my responsibilities. I work on this.
Exactly.
I'm the CEO. It's my decision. I'm the CFO. I do finance.
Exactly.
So then you guys didn't have titles, right? When you're, like, early stages building it out.
Exactly. And that's what was beautiful about it, right? Like, I was technically the business lead, and, like, I'm sure you've seen all the memes where the guy's like, I'll handle the business side of things. And like, that was me. Like, I just handled the business side of things. I'm like, what did that mean? It meant everything, right? Like, it meant finances, it meant hiring, it meant operations, it meant the content that we send out, it meant moderation, it meant everything. And sometimes Hriday would chip in, sometimes Hriday would be busy on product stuff, sometimes Jay would chip in, sometimes Jay would be busy with that. Like, I was not involved in the engineering on a day-to-day basis, but like I would be user testing a bunch to talk to users and then give them the insights and discuss those insights so we can make product-related changes. So it was really nice that like none of us believed that our roles were kind of set and steadfast. And I think a big, not a red flag, but I think it's dangerous if you're starting a startup and like you just immediately are like, okay, you're gonna be CEO, CFO, chief product officer, like within like the first 3 days of starting a startup, you've already divvied up all these roles. I don't think that's a good idea. And I think people learn and grow and mature into roles and everything. And like, bro, you have no finances. Like, what do you mean you have a CFO? Like, what are you doing? You know, like you don't need 3 engineers on your team. You need to build a product and ship it first. So I don't know. Sometimes like we get excited, which is great, but like don't put the cart before the horse, you know?
Right, exactly. It's everyone kind of working together on this mission. It's like, hey, it doesn't matter how you do it, just gotta get it done, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so, Ryan, so you were building this out your senior year of college.
Right.
And so, how did you know that this was something that you wanted to pursue post-grad? Because I'm sure that there's a difference between starting something in college, like, all right, did it, it was like a nice side project, and actually turning this into a real scalable company.
Right.
It's definitely a hard decision. You thought about going to LinkedIn, decided not to. It still ended up really great to risk. So, can you talk to me about a decision process? How did you come to that?
Yeah, don't worry. I mean, I didn't get the job offer from LinkedIn, so that definitely helped with the decision process. You guys laughed a little too hard at that. So my whole thing was I don't know, like I'm very lucky, and I keep saying that because I need to hammer it in. Like when I told my dad that I was starting a startup, his first thought was, "That's amazing. Like you should pursue it full time. Like we're there to support you in any way you need it." My mom's advice was like, as long as you feel like you're doing something good, like do it, we'll support you. Like many people don't get those kinds of opportunities. So like my life like was a little bit easier on that front. Like a lot of us can't really afford to do that and don't really have that where like our parents are super supportive about those things. We have loans. Okay, technically I had loans as well, but I just like put that to the back of my head, which I shouldn't have done. But yeah, so that made that easier. And two, and arguably the most important thing, like there was this like insatiable hunger that I had. Like it just didn't feel done. Like there was this more that we had to do. There was more we could do. There was a journey out there. Hriday was like, I'm in if you're in, and Jay was like, I'm in if you guys are in. So Jay actually, after we graduated in 2016, Jay got into the master's program for CS to do computer security for Cal, and he was at one point doing Wildfire full time and doing his master's program full time, which is like, come on, bro, like that's a lot. But I stand by this when I say I think Jay is the smartest person that I've ever worked with in my life. I think Jay really is. So he was able to handle both. Hriday is arguably the most creative individual I've ever met. And to me, it was like, I could go and work for a company and gain skills and earn money and then eventually put that to law school, or I could take a huge risk, with 2 individuals who are vastly different than me and learn from them and level myself up. And I chose the latter because I just thought it'd be fun. And I thought we could do something good. And more importantly, like going off the good thing, like I just thought we could impact people's lives in a positive way, man. Like it really just comes down to that, right? Like Hriday, Jay, and I started this because we fundamentally believe that information should be democratized, right? Like whether it's a freshman or a senior, like nothing should stop you from getting the same quality and the same quantity of information in the same velocity. Like and that was one of those things, right? Like it wasn't the case for the longest time, right? Like we would find out information from 14 different sources and we'd have to piece it together. And so what really also, and to answer your question, like what really kind of put us over the edge was in like end of 2016 when there was actually a shooting in Berkeley. Someone was shot dead on like Haste near that area, and the shooter was on loose, and like we were like in the nascent stages of Wildfire at that time. We had like 4,000 users, and we thought we were sick like as hell. Like we were like 4,000 users, like we are so cool. And we were kind of cool, like I thought it was kind of cool personally. Because that's 4,000 people that thought our app was valuable, that thought our product was valuable enough for them to have it on their platform. And like, that's one thing that you guys should like keep in mind, that like, every single user is valuable, and like you should do your best to like respect every user and talk to every user, because like they could use any other platform, they don't necessarily need to use yours. But in 2016 or end of 2016, when that shooting happened, Wildfire was the only place where there was verified information about what was happening during that shooting. We had a bunch of misinformation on Facebook groups. We had a bunch of misinformation on like Yik Yak and a bunch of other sources. But like we had like very strict rules on moderation related stuff on Wildfire and what we would send out and what we would do. We need double confirmation. We believe very strongly in like in journalism ethics. Like we just can't send out information just because it's like supposed to be out there. And like we got a lot of crap from a lot of people who are like, you need to tell students about this immediately because you're endangering their lives by not doing so. And we were like, yeah, I agree, but like we can't give them false information as well. Otherwise, we're just contributing to fear mongering at the end of the day. So that was just like a difficult decision for us to make, but we were able to like make the right decision, which is you wait for double confirmation, you wait for that information, and then you send it out. And there were rumors that like the shooter had gone towards the sorority area and the shooter was like near that. And there were screenshots floating around of like sorority group chats that are like, I think the shooter's outside my door. And like, that's just like a really, really scary incident, obviously, in panic. But like we stuck to our guns and we got the information and we sent it out. And we grew from 4,000 users to like, I think like 27,000 users overnight. At Berkeley, like everything crashed.
That was that moment.
That was the moment. That was the moment where we hit this concept called product market fit. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, but like it's that moment where you just know that like people are taking your product out of your hands faster than you can supply it to them. And it's a wonderful feeling. And by the way, like I'll just say this straight up, like it is possible to lose product market fit after you get it, or you can fool yourself into thinking you have product market fit by just like hiring a bunch of people or like raising a bunch of money, and none of those things are actual signals for product market fit. So we found product market fit, but we found product market fit at Berkeley for a very specific situation. Like when there's a safety incident that's going on, when we could alert people, people would use our product. We found product market fit for that, but like it took us a while to find product market fit for like, or PMF for like other things, and we actually realized that people started churning off our product because like we actually did a bunch of user interviews and we realized that like people were slowly churning off our product. We were losing like 30 users a day, 50 users a day. And when we asked them like what the reason was, they were like every notification that I get from you guys is so dark and so dreary that I'd much rather like not know what's going on than be in the know and be freaked out. And like that was just like such a moment for us because one, you only get that from talking to users, and two, we realized that like we had to diversify content and we had to diversify what we were doing. Otherwise, we were just going to lose a bunch of people in the process. So I don't know. That was just like a really interesting experience of something that really worked, and then what wouldn't work if we just kept doing the same thing. You know, so we could have fooled ourselves into thinking that we won the game when we really hadn't. You know.
Yeah, it's interesting. You have one use case, which is we're going to focus on like safety, right? But there's another use case. I'm not sure if you knew, but the cast of Selling Sunset was on campus a few weeks ago. Christopher Nolan was on campus.
I saw that.
Yeah, it would be nice to have an alert, right? Saying, oh, you know, go near Dill Library, go take a photo with him or something. All these various use cases, not even just at Berkeley, but at universities across the United States. I believe you expanded 200 plus universities. So why are you able to go and expand from one university to another where there's completely different dynamics, varying student bodies? So finding product market fit over and over again.
Right, exactly. That's what's really cool, right? Because like Berkeley is a campus that cares a lot about safety. But if you go to UCLA, you're going to find that people care about parties, or like speakers on campus. Or if you go to University of Virginia, people might care about something else completely. Like, so it's just, you can think that you know what a campus cares about, but until you actually get to that school, or at least until you put yourself in the mindset of that student in that university, you're not going to know what's going on. Because like I'll give you an example. Like I think it was something like it was like Duke University. That's one of the first campuses that we launched at, or second or third. And we were like, okay, like we're going to replicate the same thing. We're going to take student safety and we're going to do it at like Princeton. But like Princeton doesn't have a bunch of safety-related incidents that are happening, so we are taking a concept that worked at Berkeley, and we're trying it at a university where that's not what people are going to be using it for, and if people aren't using it for that, what's the point of having the product? So what we had to do was, with every school that we launched and with every university that we kind of like were looking at, we had to find out what was the persona of that university, what is the persona of that student, and that was like super fun, because I take a lot of pride in this for our team, but like we never, except for UC Davis and UC Merced, we have never been to like any of the other college campuses that we've launched at. Like we ran an armchair operation from our office in San Francisco, like 7 employees, just like ran this entire thing, not once going to any of these schools. And we also like never really had like campus ambassadors as well. For us, it was marketing, right? Like it was the way we marketed the product. It was the way we tapped into FOMO at the end of the day. Because forget about the safety incidents for just a second. As we expanded to other campuses, we had to expand our scope of content as well. So we expanded to stuff like free food on campus, which is a big one. Celebrities on campus, like professors getting arrested. Because schools will very rarely let you know if a professor's getting arrested for something sketch. But
That's
like,
pretty cool.
Yeah, but like we will, because we don't, like, we're not beholden to make the university look good. We're beholden to making sure students have the right amount of information. We got into like, we were threatened to be sued multiple times by frats for like posting stuff about like, for sending out notifications about like sexual assaults that happened there and stuff like that. It's like serious stuff. And like, people have sent us emails being like, we demand to know like who outed us, like who's the individual that outed us, who's the woman that outed us. And we'd be like, take us to court. Like, you're not gonna get the name from us. But the thing is like, as we expanded the scope of content, we realized that like we had to get smarter about our marketing. And what we kind of tapped into, as I said, FOMO was like, I know something and 4 people don't know it. I am the one with the information. Like I am like, you want to know what I know at the end of the day. For example, like if Christopher Nolan's on campus, which by the way, like that's super cool and I wish I was there. But if Nolan's on campus and you know it, but 6 of your friends don't, you are the person with the information, and like that's social capital right there at the end of the day. So so the way we would market it is that like we would like do a lot of email campaigns for these universities, and we'd be like, did you know these 6 things happened on your campus and you didn't even know about it? And it would be like 6 real things about like what had happened on their campus, and we'd just be like, don't give into FOMO, just like download our product for completely free, and like you will get access to like all this information as well. So we got like the first 1,000 or so students on a campus with that information, but then like after the first 1,000 expanding to 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 was all word of mouth. We did not pay a single dollar for user acquisition because suppose something happened, you'd be like, oh, dude, like, did you hear like Nolan's on campus? And then, or I'll take another example of safety, which is predominantly what happened in Berkeley. You'd be like, oh man, did you hear someone got robbed outside Unit 3? And you'd be like, oh dude, like I didn't know that, like what happened? Like you'd give them information, they'd be like, where did you find out? You'd show them Wildfire, they'd download it immediately. That's how we get it. Because what we realize is that even though you will enjoy the other aspects of Wildfire and you will enjoy the other aspects of like what Wildfire has to offer, very rarely are you gonna churn on a product that's gonna let you know about an active shooter that's on campus in a validated way, obviously, not like in like a sketch way, but like very rarely are people gonna uninstall a product that gives them utilitarian content at the end of the day. And what we did was that giving them that utilitarian content of like safety related stuff bought us time to be able to send you other types of content to like get you to use our product more. It would allow us to like boost our engagement, allow us to boost our numbers, allow you to tell friends about different things. Sure, I'll just make up an example. If you're a 6'1", like, or 6'3", like basketball player, like maybe safety doesn't appeal to you as much. Like learning about a robbery that happened doesn't appeal to you as much. But maybe free food does appeal to you. So like maybe you'll tell your friends about that. So it's about how do we get out as many hits of content or many different kinds of content as possible so there's something for everyone so we can spread virally within that campus. So it's honestly a lot of user psychology, right? Like none of this is like engineering necessarily. None of this is product necessarily. It's all just like trying to talk to your users and understand like what is it that they don't have and how can we get them what they do have. And like it was a lot of fun. I had so much fun with it, you know?
No, it's a very unique sort of growth story, essentially, really tapping into what people need and essentially want to share is information, right?
Yeah.
I know something that you don't. I'm gonna go tell my friends that.
Right.
And it could be about anything, essentially.
Right.
So really incredible, but I'm curious, so along this success, growing super fast, you're also involved in Y Combinator, right?
Right. So we did every possible Berkeley thing we could. Like we went through free ventures, we went through Skydeck, we went through the house fund, and then we got into YC. It was pretty much at a point where Berkeley was like, get out of this city. it was like we had graduated, and it was like 1 year after, like it was 2017. We'd graduated 1 year after, and we were like, only then had we gotten into YC, and we were like, okay, it's time for us to move to SF. It's time for us to like get our lives together and everything. And I couldn't find a picture of it because it's lost somewhere, but like our first apartment together was our office as well. So there's like a picture of us like getting whiteboard walls from Home Depot and like sticking it up against like the wall and like writing there every day. Like it was super dope. It was like a table in the middle with like 3 dudes on chairs and just like a whiteboard next to us, just like brainstorming. And like, I don't know, no matter the fancy conference rooms I stay in right now, like that's like so much fun. So we did YC in 2017, summer of 2017. And I can confidently say, and I can't speak for Hriday and Jay, but I can confidently say that's the hardest I've ever worked in my life, because it's like 3 months and you are being compared to like everyone else that's in that batch that's just as hardworking and is just as smart and is just as capable of you. And like YC sometimes does this thing where like they'll call you out. They'll be like, oh, like you have this thing called group office hours where like you and the entire cohort is like sitting around in a group, and your group partner's just going around being like, what are your updates? What are your updates? And like, if your updates aren't good, they're just gonna be like, what is this BS? Like, what is this update that you have? It's like nonsensical. So the pressure was really on for us to deliver, because also like we had to fundraise. Like we were not being paid at this point. Like we were broke post-college students at this point. We were lucky that we had our parents supporting us, but like that's not a very sustainable model, nor can we get employees through that. So we really took YC for what it was. A lot of people believe that like YC is the end, right? Like you get into YC, your life is done, you're gonna run a successful startup. It could not be like further from the truth. I think YC is a means to an end. You have to like use it for what it is, which is like a place for you to learn, a place for you to meet great, cool, smart people, and then like expand upon that and kind of jump on that. And I don't know, like some people in YC that I've met are also like, there's this chip on YC people's shoulder, and I disagree with this kind of like vehemently, where like, some people will say like, in order for you to run a successful startup, you have to go through YC. Like in order for you to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be a Y Combinator company. Like that is such like BS. And like, we got rejected from YC 3 times and then got it on our 4th time. Like the first time we applied, we didn't get an interview. Second time we applied, didn't get an interview. Third time we applied, got an interview, got rejected. And then the 4th time, we got it. So like, YC is just a means to an end, and like, I really want to stress that, because like, we go to Berkeley, which is a really prestigious university, and like, oftentimes like that prestige matters, and like, it's so important that you understand that like, you don't need that to be a world-class entrepreneur. What YC does at the end of the day is just connect you to right people and great people.
It's a signal.
It's a signal at the end of the day. It really is just a signal at the end of the day. I mean, but also like, if you do get in, like take advantage of it. If you do get in, like bust your butt. Like I will say YC people are at a slight advantage because of the network and because of the connections, but I don't think that like means that like, I don't think that diminishes anyone from ever being able to like get somewhere great. So I don't know, just my thoughts on that, because like YC, some YC folk have a tendency to be like, you need to do YC in order to succeed, and like, I think that's,
yeah, I'm not sure. Have you seen this like Twitter thread? I think it was with the founder of Bolt, was explaining YC and the pros and cons of it. And so it kind of speaks to that.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on that for later, but I don't know, man. It's just like, at the end of the day, if you care about a company and you care about what you're doing, like, you'll find a way to make it. You should find a way to make it work, regardless of whether YC is there to help you or not. Like, make YC eat their lunch. If YC rejected you, find another way. Like, there are so many accelerators out there, so many ways to do it. And like, I mean, that's like the most like Instagram, like beautiful looking like advice. Like, find a way to do it. But like, there are other resources and there are other ways to do it. And like people like me are always there to help people as well. Like, I'll get to that as well later. But like, there are so many ways for people to succeed, and YC is just not like one of them. But for us back in 2017, because we were new grads with absolutely no industry experience, and the thing is, so we were building a social consumer product, right? A quasi-social consumer product, right as the fall of Yik Yak was happening, for their cyberbullying, for their bomb threats and all that kind of stuff. So people were really hesitant about investing in 3 dudes who were creating a social consumer startup again, predicated on lots of moderation issues that could happen, like sexual assaults, murders, stabbings, all that kind of stuff. So I understand the hesitation from the venture capital crowd, but That's why for us, YC was really important because it allowed us to forge connections with people who would take a chance on us. And I gotta say, like, the first person who took a chance on us was Jeremy Fiance, right here in Berkeley at the House Fund. He's the one that put the first money into Wildfire, first 50,000 check in Wildfire, and like, we would not, and I still talk to him very often, and he is one of the smartest, most talented VCs out there, and if anyone has the opportunity to work with him, like, that's just my plug because he's such a great guy, and I'll always be indebted. I think all three of us will always be indebted to the fact that, like, Jeremy took a chance on us when not a lot of people would. So that is honestly what led us to the YC path, because he took a chance on us.
Yeah, it's like one step leads to another, you build off of it, right?
Exactly.
You continue growing, continue scaling, and then post-YC, you had some like top tier, I think you raised what, $3 million from amazing VCs.
Yeah.
Now you're not just some three dudes, right out of college. You're a company.
Right.
You have a ton of money coming in.
Yeah.
You have to support them. So like, how the dynamic change? How are you able to now scale when you have VC money coming in? It seems a little bit more difficult at that point.
Yeah, it's funny because like sometimes I don't know, like we raised $3.1 million, right? And sometimes I'd like sit to myself and I'd wonder like, do these VCs know that they just invested in like three 26-year-old, or like 20, 24-year-old degenerates? Like, do they know what they've just done? I mean, we had a great idea and we were working really hard, and that's very true, but it's like, we were untested. People just took a chance on us because they thought our idea was good and because they believed in the team. And that's really what it is about seed round, right? Like, do you have a good idea? And do you have a good team that can execute on that idea? And like, do you not seem like a jackass to work with at the end of the day? And like, that's kind of the major stuff. So the dynamics did change, right? Because like when you're three people and you're working just with each other, you can debate ideas amongst each other and come to a consensus and keep moving forward. But when you have people that have a significant stake in your company, it's no longer just your baby, it's someone else that has like lots of ideas and lots of thoughts and like lots of ruminations on like what they think could be better about your company. So I will say like we really lucked out where our VCs were wonderful human beings and always just supported us through our ideas for the most part. There were times where they would push back really heavily on us, but it never was to a point where like they were telling us what to do. I mean, yeah, sure, there were tips that we got into occasionally, like, but it was all because they wanted us to be better, but like, it's our baby, we're gonna do it our way.
Right, everyone has their own perspective, so you just kind of find ways to agree and obviously come to a conclusion and then continue going from there. And eventually you found your way leading to an acquisition, so like congrats on that, open door.
Yeah.
And so what's next? I mean, I'm assuming that you and your co-founder are still Open Door, right?
Still at Open Door. I mean, yeah, it's been 6 months at Open Door, which is like pretty incredible. And it's been a surreal journey, right? Because like we grew to about 1 million users, and it was just one of those like really fascinating things where like time flies when you're working with these wonderful people, and we realized that like Open Door was the next best path for us to grow as a startup and also for us to grow as individuals. So Open Door was great. My co-founders and I, we are on special projects where we run our own division within Open Door right now. Hriday leads up the product, I lead up the operations, Jay leads up engineering. But we are learning from some really cool people who are like way smarter than us. And I think that's what's really fun about this, right? Because taking a company 0 to 1 is a ton of fun. But then going from 1 to 100, like that's a different kind of pleasure and charm and like fun in and of itself. And I just think we get to experience that a lot more with these individuals over here. And we also get to learn from people that have been doing this for a long time and get to like help us understand these kinds of things. And we still want to embody that no ego kind of policy because sure, like we might be coming in acquisition, but like there's so much that we don't know. And I think going with the thought process that like, you know more than me, I'm going to listen for a while, understand what I have to say, and then kind of dive in. I think like that's the kind of path that you want to go down when these kinds of things happen,
Right, at the end of the day, you're still so early in your career. I mean, within the last 6 years, you have so much left to learn.
Yeah.
And you just learn so much, but continuing off of that path.
Yeah, I tell my parents this all the time because my parents are like, oh, like you've done the startup, like you should just like relax a little bit. And I get it, right? Like I get it. It was tough, but like I'm of the thought process that I have not hit the apex of my career. I think there's more that I can do. I'm still hungry for more. Like there's more that like I don't know if a startup is next for me, mostly just because I'm still getting over the PTSD of the previous one. But like I love working on things where like you get to solve a problem. Very fundamentally, you get to solve a problem and see the joy on people's face when you solve a problem. It's just a wonderful feeling, right?
Yeah, so I guess if you go back, to your college days,
Yeah.
would you go back and do the same thing you did right now? Would you go ahead and create a startup again?
100%. Oh my God. But also like, it's easy for me to say that, like, because it's worked out. If it failed, I might have a different answer, or if if it worked out, but I didn't talk to my co-founders anymore because we were fighting or something like that, I might have a different answer. But as I was mentioning earlier, like I wish I'd gone back and done economics or stuff like that, but like, I don't think that would have impacted this. Like, I think this was the path, and I'm really glad that I did this, and I'm really excited because like, I get to help other people now, like achieve certain things or help them along their path, and like that gives me so much joy. I don't know if you're probably going to bring this up, but like I do some angel investing on the side, and I've invested in 2 companies so far because like for me it's like quality over quantity, and for me it's like both companies that I've invested in are Cal founders because Go Bears for life, obviously, but also too like I just know the quality that's coming out. Like I know like what problems these students are trying to solve. I know what they're trying to do, and more than anything else, there's a relatability factor, and like, I don't know, go Bears, right? Like, I'm kind of a diehard Cal guy, if it's not noticeable, but yeah, so I angel invest in my spare time in Cal companies, but like, the reason I don't just like invest in a bunch of people is because like, I want to be able to have like meaningful relationships with the people that I talk to and get into conversations with. Like, I want us to brainstorm for hours, for days. Like, even if we've only hung out like 3 times, brainstorm for days on like the things that we can do to just like solve big problems and stuff like that. And I think that's the kind of relationship that I want to build with like founders that I want to invest in, rather than just like, you're a check.
Spray and pray versus really building these meaningful relationships over time.
And the thing is, for me, it's not about the ROI. And I know that's like the worst thing any investor can ever say, like, it's not about the ROI. But for me, it's like, I know if I'm investing in the founder. I'm not investing in the company. I'm investing in you as an individual, because even if the company does fail, I know you are so smart, you are so capable that you're going to do great things in the future, and I'm going to be right there when that happens, and it's like, hitch a ride there at that point. And so like, that's just a big thing for me. Invest in people, not in like startups.
Invest in people, invest in relationships, and invest in Cal, honestly. And I mean,
invest in Cal.
Right.
Invest in Cal.
So really appreciate you, giving your time back,
of course.
being with students. And so anything you would like to give advice in terms of students, like what they should do, or just any recommendations?
Oh, that's a tough one. Recommendations. I mean, this is something that I did a lot more like a little bit after graduation, but like, say yes more often to like things that take you outside your comfort zone. It's really easy to just, trust me, like I've been there, right? Like, it's really easy to be like within your comfort zone, but like you should branch out and say yes to as many opportunities as possible, so you can get an idea of like what is out there. And 2, another bit of advice that I have, oh, by the way, like starting my like senior year of college, I started putting together this doc. It's like a 3-page doc on like all the best articles that I've read, all like the most amazing insights and advice that I've gotten from all the articles that I've read. And it's just a document that I put together to help me become a better entrepreneur over the years. And I think it's just something really valuable for everyone. And the document's available like either through scanning or just like the bit.ly link. But like I would be a voracious reader. Just like read a bunch of things, and even if you don't understand it, just like try to ask your friends for advice. Like I'm a non-technical guy, but I ask my technical friends for advice and for favors all the time, because I want to be able to like learn and experience those things. And if any of you are interested in starting a startup, there are some people that, and both ideas work and both strategies work, but there's some people that get into a room and they go on a whiteboard and they're like, okay, these are all the problems that I want to solve in this world, like climate change, global warming, end-to-end delivery, all that kind of stuff. You write those problems down and you try to solve it, and you try to get a team together. The way that we did it, which is what I believe is a better way for folks like me, can't speak for everyone, is like, figure out the problems that are plaguing you in your own life. Like, live your life, go through college, figure out the problems that are plaguing you in your own life, figure out problems that are plaguing your friends, and try to solve those problems. Because I guarantee you, if there are problems that your friends are facing, there are more people that are facing those problems, and try to solve that problem. Because like, it's really easy to get wrapped up in this whole like, oh, Web3, we gotta create a startup. Yeah, I mean, if you start a Web3 startup right now, you're gonna be worth $1 billion by like tomorrow, but I'm not even joking, it's gonna happen. But if you wanna solve like a problem, like, go look inwards, actually. Look inwards at all the problems that you have. Some of the best companies have come out of that, like Uber came out of that as well, like Twitter came out of that in a lot of ways. Wildfire came out of that for her day, because he was trying to do something and he couldn't, and he decided to make sure he could democratize that to everyone at the end of the day. And I think that's the best way to start something. It's also like, if you can't speak to why you're trying to solve a problem with gusto and passion, you cannot expect anyone else to buy it. So like, you need to be like completely sold on that. And sorry, my last bit of advice, because I have so many nuggets of wisdom that just come. No matter what major you are, like, never forget that like strong verbal and written communication is so important. It doesn't matter whether you're an engineer, it doesn't matter whether you're a poli-sci major, you need to be an effective communicator and a strong writer, and those skills will take you so far. I cannot tell you guys the amount of memos and the amount of things that Hriday J and I have had to write to explain what we do in a very simple way. And we struggle with that. Like, how do you explain our product to my grandmother? Like, it's so difficult to do that, but we have to find a way. So reading and writing and those kinds of comprehension skills are so important. It's a tool that should always be sharp in your arsenal. So like, just don't lose that. It's so useful. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm speechless. I mean, these are some amazing pieces of advice. I'm going to take them personally. I'm hopefully valuable for many of the students in the class. And so thank you so much. And
of course.
We'd love to open it up for any Q&A. But first of all, just a round of applause. Like, this is amazing.
Thank you.
So,
Abigail and I have a microphone, so just raise your hands. Oh, Abigail. I'll take this side.
Hi, thank you for coming. My name's Christina. This actually hits home because I was at Doe Library the other day, and there was a false alarm for an active shooter, and we were all very freaked out. And I was just wondering, with the balance of trying to provide information on a time-efficient scale and false information, I was curious about how that works on the back end, the process of when you discover an event and then to the point where you get to that double confirmation and alert. Could you just describe that?
Yeah, that's a great question. In case people couldn't hear it, she was asking us like, what was the process through which we validated our information before we sent it out as an alert? And that was like the bread and butter of Wildfire, right? I mean, if we couldn't get that right, there is no company at the end of the day. So we also decided to go down the extra dangerous path, which is like user-generated content in addition to like all types of content. So we would get our content from a myriad of sources, like police scanners, online media, news media, paid media. We had like this amazing scraper that Jay had built out, which scrapes things in real time. But we also relied on user-generated content because that's on the ground, that's unbeatable at the end of the day. So in case someone ever sent out those kinds of like posts, I guess it's important for me to clarify that like people could post on Wildfire, but the power to send out an alert to everyone on campus or to anyone in general, like, was never with anyone except for us on our back end. So it would be something that we did at Wildfire, and no one could just like trigger a false alert and send it out to 1,000 people and be like, haha, tricked them all. It wasn't a thing. So the onus was on us completely. So the way it worked was, we either got our content from a myriad of these kinds of like sources that we built out, or user-generated content. And when we got a user-generated content or UGC, or let's give you an example. Let's just go off the active shooter thing that happened. So if someone posted about like, I think there's an active shooter on campus or something like that, the first thing that we would do is we would, like, using our scraper, like peruse all forms of media that we could find to see if we could find double confirmation or any kind of confirmation for what was kind of going on about that situation. We would contact UCPD, we would contact our people in the newspaper, like we would contact anyone that we had to kind of get those things done. Suppose we could not get any sort of confirmation yet, but it's still an important bit of information for people to know. We would do like the standard thing that a lot of newspapers do, which is say a big fat unconfirmed, and then send out the alert, and then say, check back for, like, we will alert you as this becomes, like, this is a live situation, we'll alert you as we get more information. So the unconfirmed would let people know that it's obviously not confirmed yet, but to be wary. And then our goal from that moment onwards would be to send as many notifications as possible to make sure that people are aware of what's happening till we can actually confirm or deny the situation. And yes, it was a chaotic time because it's really important that you get things right during active shooter situations, obviously. And I would say like a good So I've handled, it's a sad thing to say, and I don't take pride in this in any way. I've handled way too many active shooter situations across these 200 campuses. I would say 90% of the ones that I've worked on, or 95, have all had some form of double confirmation within minutes. Because the thing about active shooters are that they're not very quiet. So you usually end up, multiple people usually end up hearing something, or multiple people usually end up posting something somewhere. And the whole point of getting to a larger percentage of campus is that multiple people can hear it, multiple people can post on the app at the same time, which would be that double confirmation that you need, or that triple confirmation that you need. And some people will post pictures as well. So like the whole game was getting it confirmed through multiple sources, and then bubbling it up, and then using journalism practices from there. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't perfect. Like none of this strategy was perfect, but I'm really proud to say, I'm actually really proud to say that like, we never once got an active shooter situation wrong. Like I think we handled something like 70, or 75 or something like that. I gotta go look it up later, but like we never once got it wrong. We always strive to like get it right, and we were able to get it right like a vast majority of the time. Because like therapy puppies are on campus, you can get that wrong. You cannot get this, like these are the things that kill your business. So we took it really, really seriously, and like even though it wasn't the most scalable thing all the time, I'm the one that handled a lot of those escalations, because whether it's 3 a.m. or 2 p.m., you want to get that one right. So I would usually handle that one personally. Sorry, did that answer your question for the most part?
I wanted to clarify something. You talked about ROI, and no.
Yeah.
So everybody wants to have a certain return on investment, which is ROI. About your return on investment. I'm wondering what your business model was. Super important to know when things are going on, but what is your business model? What was your business model for Wildfire?
Yeah, I'm chuckling because our business model was we had no business model. Yeah, we actually like, in the 6 years that we ran Wildfire, we never made a single dollar. And I'm not saying that in like a prideful way. I'm saying that in like we should have prioritized it from day one and made that like a bigger part of the company. Our philosophy on monetization was we were going to monetize through, because here's the thing, if a school is using WarnMe or they're using Nixle and a lot of people are using that platform, or they find that platform to be antiquated, our whole philosophy is if 80% of a given campus is using our product, if the school pays for us instead, we're going to be doing a much better job of alerting students in real time when they need to know about things. That's one thing. Two, allowing admin to be able to post on our product and all that kind of stuff. So we had like monetization strategies kind of like built out and everything like that, but that's kind of when like COVID hit and we weren't able to do, and money was tight for a lot of these colleges, so we had to kind of like clamp down on that. But the reason actually, we had a good reason why we didn't focus exclusively on monetization, even though a lot of people did. And the reason behind that was because we wanted to build a company that people loved, first and foremost, over a company that made money. And I know that's a weird thing, but I'll explain a little bit more. I think like we probably could have pushed harder on making money from day one, but we're still figuring out like what was valuable about us for people to want to pay for us. And we were just like, from day one, we were like, we're not charging students. We're never charging students. Like we like the audacity that we would have to charge students for information that you should know in the first place would be the worst. So no, we were never going to charge students. So where is the money? Like we were thinking like, should we charge parents? And then we were like, that would be a terrible idea. They're already paying too much for tuition. So charging the school was the best idea because we're like, oh, they have too much money anyways. Let's just charge the school. It's true, they do have too much money sometimes. But we never really got around to that. But so the whole point of like building what we did was we really wanted to build a company that people didn't use as a fad, or people didn't use as an app that just would fade away into obscurity in the next couple of days. You actually would be surprised. Like the amount of apps that hit 1 million users and then fade into obscurity is a lot. Like there are tons of products that hit 1 million users like in one weekend, and then like 2 weeks later, like no one's really talking about it. And we really didn't want to be like that. So for us, it was like, how do we build a product that people are coming back day over day, week over week, month over month? How are we creating a product where people are coming back on their own volition without us necessarily prompting them? And that equals building a product that people love, and that means not throwing ads in the middle. making their experience beautiful, making sure you know that you are our first priority at all points in time, and then we can find a way to monetize. Because our philosophy is, if we get a great community of people that are so passionate about your product, then find a way to monetize on top of them because they love your product already. But if you have people that don't really know how they feel about your product and you're throwing in ads and throwing in monetization, you don't even know if you've hit product market fit with them to know how much money you can make off of them. So that's why so we had a good reason for waiting, but I also believe we should have been double pronged in our effort of trying to think about both things at once and everything like that too. So, you learn, but also this was a consumer product and our VCs also knew that they weren't gonna see money for a little bit of time. So, yeah, poor VCs, I guess.
Happy to take questions. Looking for hands. Yeah. Ask 1, 2. Abby, you want to go over there?
Hello. Okay. I'm Naman. I'm a sophomore. But I guess my question is, you never really answered how you end up making money. So when Open Door acquired your company, how did they monetize it?
I couldn't quite hear you properly. Would you mind speaking up a little bit?
You never really answered how your company started making money. So when Open Door did acquire Wildfire, how did they start I guess making money off of the product?
Yeah, so I can't go into too much of those details, mostly just because legal and all that kind of stuff. But I can say that Open Door didn't want Wildfire for our monetization or our ability to monetize or anything like that. They wanted us for a myriad of reasons, from our ability to scale, our ability to grow, our ability to launch in new markets, and the founding team as well, which is really, really good at new product experimentation. So a bunch of those things. But our ability or inability to monetize was probably not one of the reasons why they wanted to acquire us.
Hi, I'm Joseph. I'm a sophomore studying EECS. Hello. I have 2 questions regarding scalability. So the first question is, your service is very specific and tailored to each school, right? So how did you solve the problem of scalability in the long run? That's the first question. And the second question is, before you solve the problem of scalability, how do you convince investors that you could actually scale up before you knew you could scale up?
That is a brilliant question, and that's honestly the $1 million question, right? How do we convince? He was pretty much asking, how did we convince investors that we were capable of scaling when we hadn't scaled? So the truth is, we had scaled to a certain extent. So when we got into YC, which is the first time we got into YC, we were at I think 4 colleges or 5 colleges at that point. Doing pretty well, we were growing pretty well. But 3 months later, when we left YC, we were at 25 colleges, growing 15% week over week with really, really solid retention, really, really solid stats. So the way we were able to show them is by actually showing them that we're capable. And we were just we grew from 4 colleges to 25 in 3 months, and we're a rocket ship. You can get in right now, or you don't have to get in right now. But the proof is in the pudding. And to be fair, we did push the fires a lot. We were it was really hard. We were 3 people in a room trying to scale a bunch of stuff. So all our growth was genuine and nothing was shady in any way. All our growth was it could be, you could look at the graph and you could point to the users and everything was there. But it was also us pushing the boundaries of what we were able to do in the time that we had. If investors had been expand to 40 and we'll talk, we probably wouldn't have been able to do that. But we made it seem like we were 25 on an upward trajectory in that second, and that's how we really, really sold them that we were capable of doing it, which we were. We just needed more money to be able to do it faster, and we were able to do that. And your first question, I forgot your first question. Would you mind? How did we actually solve the scalability problem? So there's different types of scalability issues, right? There's the scalability issue of launching campus to campus. There's the scalability issue of how do you make sure content is kind of being scaled? How do you make sure your tech stack is being scaled? All that kind of stuff. I can't speak too deeply to the technical aspect of how things were scaled past a certain point. But I can tell you that process building was the #1 way to go. So we actually were very smart about the fact that we hired crowd workers Because think about it, like scaling Wildfire is not hard. Scaling the idea of Wildfire is not hard. It's the execution that is hard, right? Because the app, you can make anyone download it, but like when you open up the app, the content that's on the app and the notifications that are going out, that is the bread and butter that makes it unique to your campus, and that's the part that needs to be scaled at the end of the day. So what we would do is that we got a ton of crowd workers that would be kind of sifting through a lot of the content in real time as they would come in, and based on like keywords and processes, there would be escalations, and things would be going out if pretty much like, if picture was attached, robbery was happening right now, the keyword was robbery, it said this, police confirmation was given over here, send it out to like 1% of people before sending it out to 30% of people and stuff like that. So we had like a bunch of systems and processes built out, courtesy of our wonderful CTO Jay and Hriday and me, just like kind of like getting in a room and just like powering those things out. So yeah, it was honestly like building processes, building systems, and being able to understand what people actually want to see so you could give them the content that they wanted. I hope that was able to answer your question. Great.
I have a different question. Yeah, rather have you ask a question. I have a hard question for you.
Oh, no worries.
My name is Isabel. You meant
Yes, please. I'd love that. I couldn't hear properly.
I don't know why that one isn't working very well. It's just, maybe somebody who has a microphone that works. Do you have any advice on the writing and rhetoric skills and how to practice that? Because it's so important. Does that affect?
Yeah, writing and rhetoric skills.
I think like communication in general.
Communication in general, right? Okay, so I'll talk about communication really quickly because like I think founder communication is one of the most like underrated skills out there because it works with pretty much anyone. It works in relationships, it works with friendships, it works with everything. Me, Hriday, and Jay actually went to this very founders workshop, which is very like kumbaya-esque like workshop, and it was actually one of the most incredible experiences of our entire relationship. And the biggest thing that I got out of that was how to communicate with a founder and someone. And the biggest lesson that I took away is that like instead of like telling someone that like, yo, like why didn't that get done, or like you didn't do this, like why wasn't it done, just like phrasing it as, and I'm sure so many people are aware here, like phrasing it as like, hey, like when you did this or when you didn't do this, it made me feel this way. And I know that's like super flowery and like super like emotional, but like you are pretty much living, working, breathing with your co-founders all the time. So like being vulnerable, being emotional, being like honest is like never a bad thing. And those kinds of steps like really helped us. As for like communication and like rhetoric, I would really recommend reading those, like one, being a voracious reader is like one of the best ways to do things. And two, like reading those articles is like a really, really great way to kind of, say that again? Oh, yeah.
Oh, right here.
Yeah. Reading those articles, great way to kind of like, kind of do things. I will also say like something that I did in my spare time is like, I would just take a topic and I would just write about it. And I would just be like, today I'm gonna write about Amazon Prime. And I'm gonna write about the pros, the cons, the value propositions, the target audience. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy, right? But like, it just has to be like 2-liners, 3-liners, but it just like keeps your mind sharp and it keeps your mind fresh on writing. And then just like give it to someone and they should be able to understand end to end, like what the product is. And obviously, Amazon Prime, everyone knows that. Most people know what Amazon Prime is, but like take some random company and just like do that and then give it to someone who's never heard of the company. They should be able to like recite it back to you. That's how clear and concise your writing should be. We used to have this game that we would play in YC, which is pretty much like you would, because most of the companies around me were like SaaS or like deep AI and stuff like that, right? Like, social consumer is kind of fun and kind of interesting, but like most of the companies were like really in the weeds of like deep engineering. So like we'd be like, explain this to me like you're explaining this to a 2-year-old. And the amount of people that struggled with that was like ridiculous. And I'd be like, I'm a non-technical guy. Explain it to me in a way where I can walk away and I could tell all my friends about it, on how sick this idea is. Like, explain it. So like, that's just a really good way. You should take like really complex companies and try to find a way to distill it down into like the best value propositions so that anyone can understand it. That's one of the best ways to work on like your rhetoric skills for at least product related stuff.
So one of the things that you do a lot is say, I'll give you an example. And so giving an example is super, super helpful. You bring it always down to a really tangible example.
Right, totally.
I'm happy to, yeah, fantastic. Plus this one's working better. Can you pass it down?
Hi, so thank you for sharing your experience with us. I had two questions actually. So I wanted to know if you can tell us more about the mistakes you've done, you as a team as well. And also, I was curious to know like how you formed your team. So how did you tell yourself that, all right, these two people are the two with whom I really want to work with? Like just how you formed the team, how this began.
Yeah, could you repeat the first part of your question, please? I couldn't quite hear that.
The first question is about your mistakes. What mistakes did you do? Like for example, you said that you tried to get into YC 1, 2, 3, and it worked out only the 4th times, right?
Totally, yeah.
So like, why didn't it work like the first and the second and the third time? What happened?
Okay, I could write a dissertation on the amount of mistakes that I have made today. Forget about like over the last 6 years. And I think we should be able to talk about it, right? Like I think we should be able to talk about it very openly and very freely about the fact that like, even me, like anyone that's ever had any like W's in their life or W's in their work have definitely failed a ton. It's just people don't talk about their failures very much or their mistakes very much because like, wins. Yeah. Or dubs. But like, no, people don't talk about it very much because like that's not the sexy part of the alluring entrepreneurship story if you have to talk about failures. But I think it's okay, and I think it's encouraged, and I think we should talk about it. We made a ton of mistakes. I think one, like okay, you guys are gonna laugh about this, or maybe you won't. But the first time we applied to YC with no product. We applied to YC just on our idea because we thought our idea was so sick that we would get into YC with just our idea. Don't do that. That's a bad idea. It didn't work for us. We didn't get in. The second time we applied to YC with an app, but no users, and then we got rejected again. So you see the trend of what's going on here. We would just get really excited by our idea. We'd build something out, but then we would have nothing to really go off of. The third time we launched, we launched as Berkeley. We had like 20, this was like around like the time when we had like 15,000 users, 20,000 users, but we weren't growing virally. We weren't growing past just Berkeley, and people saw us as like a safety app. So the big question we got at YC was, what's your monetization model? Like, you guys don't have your monetization model built out. Like, who's gonna be paying for this? And if you guys can't figure that out, we're not gonna take you. So that was the third time. And then between the third and the fourth time, we had expanded to 4 universities. We had a growth model. We were growing, and we had ideas on how to scale. So we went back to our 4th YC interview, hella prepped on all these monetization questions. We had we had come up with all the answers. They didn't ask us a single question on monetization because they realized that we had figured out growth, that we had figured out how to grow properly and in real time. So they realized, we don't need a monetization plan right now. We can kick that can down the road, but we could grow really quickly, and we had really good numbers of people that liked us a lot. So from our mistakes came better insights and better ideas. Also, I'll say this. Anytime we didn't listen to our users, anytime we decided to do something without talking to users, generally led to making mistakes. And they're small mistakes, like not like cataclysmic, like false alerts or stuff like that, but like, it really, really goes to show, like YC's big mentality is the only 2 things you should be doing is talking to users and writing code. Talking to users and writing code. I can't write code, so like talking to users was the only thing that I was doing. And every time every time we needed a reset within Wildfire, we'd be like, shoot, okay, like something isn't working out. Let's go back and let's talk to a bunch of users. Let's get back to ground zero. Let's get reorganized and let's go back into it. So every mistake that we've made is because we just didn't focus on users and the problems that we're solving for users, and we kind of were focused on like other things. And your second question was, how did I know these people were the right people to work with? Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, kind of like process of elimination, right? Like I didn't really have anyone else to work with on the idea. It was just those two. But the reason why we decided to work long term was primarily because we were kind of in it together. Like we kind of like built the entire thing together, and like we kind of realized that like we cared about the right thing, we cared about the same thing, and honestly, caring about the same thing kind of like built everything else for us. So that's kind of the main thing for us.
I want to bring your attention to something really important, and that is not everybody is willing to share their Gmail, and we'll see how long this remains your Gmail. But yeah, Vinay Ramesh, and you did say like your total a Cal grad, so 93 is not when you graduated.
Say that again?
93 is not when you graduated.
No, 93 is when I was born.
I know, I'm like, what's up with that?
But yeah, so this is like my personal email. Like contact me. Like there were no bad ideas. Like I will respond to every email. I respond to every email that I get. Like there's no formalities. Like you all go to Cal. I went to Cal. Like I want to help. So like don't hesitate to reach out. Like I'm always down to help. Always down to grab a cup of coffee. Always down to like help out in any way that I can. So come to me with your ideas. Come to me if you're just interested, and like let's talk. And like I'm always down.
Vinay, it has been phenomenal. I know students will have one-on-one questions for you, but I want to thank you. And Rishi, I want to thank you.
Yeah,
also.
thank you so much, Rishi.
Of course, thank you. Killed it.